The twin suns of Prime painted the sky in shades of purple and gold. Princess stood on the grand balcony of the Crystal Palace, watching as thousands of guests arrived for the ceremony. Her silver gown caught the light, making her look like a star that had fallen to earth. She smiled and waved at the crowds below, but her mind was elsewhere. "You look worried," said her mother's voice from behind. Turned to see Queen Myra approaching. The queen was tall and elegant, her skin shimmering with the faint blue glow that marked all royalty. She had ruled their world for 300 years with wisdom and kindness. "I'm fine," Mother said. "Just thinking about the treaty signing today, so many species coming together in peace." Queen Myra placed a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder. "This is why we do this work. Peace is always worth the effort." The ceremony was being held in the great plaza below. Representatives from 12 different worlds had gathered to sign a trade agreement. They believed that prosperity and friendship went hand in hand. If worlds traded with each other, they would not fight with each other. Made her way down to the plaza with her guards. The guards wore ceremonial armor that was more for show than protection. Their world had known peace for so long that few remembered what real war looked like. The plaza was filled with beings of all shapes and sizes. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few glowed with their own inner light. Greeted each delegate personally, speaking in their native languages. She had studied for months to prepare for this day. The signing ceremony began at noon. One by one, the delegates approached the treaty stone and placed their marks upon it. Music filled the air. Children from different worlds danced together. Everything was perfect. Then the sky exploded with fire. Ships dropped out of hyperspace directly above the plaza. They were massive, black, and covered in weapons. Before anyone could react, beams of energy lanced down from the vessels. The ceremonial shields around the plaza shattered like glass. Mercenaries. Everyone in the galaxy knew them. They were slavers and killers who served whoever paid them the most. They took what they wanted and destroyed what they couldn't take. Chaos erupted in the plaza. Delegates screamed and ran in all directions. Guards formed a circle around her, but they were trained for ceremony, not combat. The warriors descended on platforms, their armor black and red, their weapons humming with deadly energy. "Protect the princess," shouted the guard captain. But it was too late. A warrior fired a net made of energy. It wrapped around and her guards, pulling them to the ground. The net burned with electricity. Guards collapsed unconscious. She tried to fight, tried to break free, but the net was too strong. A commander approached her. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with armor that looked like it had seen 1,000 battles. His face was hidden behind a helmet, but his voice was cold and mechanical. "Princess," he said, "you will come with us." "My mother will never negotiate with you," shouted. The commander laughed. It was a harsh, ugly sound. "She will, or we will sell you piece by piece to the slave markets of the Outer Rim. Either way, we profit." Rough hands grabbed and lifted her from the ground. She saw other prisoners being taken too, diplomats, officials, anyone who looked important. They weren't just here for her. This was a calculated raid designed to maximize ransom payments. As they dragged her toward a transport ship, looked back at the Crystal Palace. She could see her mother on the balcony, surrounded by advisors and guards. Even from this distance, could see the fear and helplessness in her mother's posture. "Mother," screamed. But her voice was lost in the chaos. They threw her into the transport ship along with a dozen other prisoners. The doors slammed shut, cutting off the light and sound from outside. The ship lifted off with a violent lurch. Inside the dark cargo hold heard the other prisoners crying. Some were injured, all were terrified. She tried to stay calm, tried to think. Her mother had taught her that panic solved nothing. The ships jumped to hyperspace. The sudden shift in reality made stomach turn. They were leaving space now, heading into the lawless regions between the stars. After what felt like hours, the transport docked with a larger ship. The prisoners were pulled out and marched through metal corridors. The station smelled of oil and burnt metal. Everything was dark and cold. They were taken to holding cells. Each prisoner was thrown into a separate cage. Cell was tiny, barely large enough to stand in. The walls were rough metal that hurt to touch. A single light panel in the ceiling cast everything in harsh shadows. A guard stood outside her cell. Through the bars, could see other cells stretching down the corridor. She heard crying, heard prayers being spoken in languages she didn't understand. "How long will you keep us here?" asked the guard. The guard didn't respond. He stood like a statue, his weapon held ready. Days passed, lost track of time in the darkness. They gave them just enough food and water to survive. Sometimes she heard screams from other cells. Sometimes prisoners were taken away and never came back. On what might have been the fifth day, the commander visited her cell again. He stood outside the bars, looking at her like she was merchandise. "Your mother has been contacted," he said. "We have given her our terms. 30 days to deliver what we demand, or you will be sold." "She will never give in to terrorism," said, trying to sound braver than she felt. "Then you will spend the rest of your life as property," the commander replied. "You are royal, you are beautiful, you will fetch a high price in the markets. Some wealthy collector will display you in a cage for guests to admire." The commander walked away, his footsteps echoing in the corridor, sat down on the cold floor of her cell and finally allowed herself to cry. Not because she was afraid for herself, though she was, but because she knew what this was doing to her mother. Queen Myra would be desperate, would be searching for any way to save her daughter. The military would try to mount a rescue, but her people were peaceful. They had ships and weapons, yes, but they had no real warriors. Not anymore. Peace had made them soft, and now that weakness was being exploited. Closed her eyes and tried to remember the feel of the twin suns on her face. Tried to remember her mother's smile. Tried to hold on to hope even as the darkness pressed in around her. Far across the galaxy, in a dingy space station orbiting a forgotten moon, a human mercenary named sat in a bar and stared at his drink. He had been between jobs for 2 weeks now. Money was getting tight. He needed work. The bartender, a four-armed alien with green skin, was watching the news on a holographic display. Glanced up at it without much interest. Just the usual galactic nonsense, trade disputes, border conflicts, political scandals. Then he saw the image of Princess. The newscast was talking about her abduction. They were offering a substantial reward for any information leading to her rescue, but everyone knew the going after them was suicide. Studied the princess's face on the screen. She looked young, innocent, hopeful. The kind of person who believed the universe was fundamentally good. The kind of person who needed someone to prove her right. He finished his drink and stood up. The bartender looked at him with knowing eyes. "Don't tell me you're thinking about going after a base," the bartender said. Didn't answer. He just dropped payment on the bar and walked out. He had some planning to do. Spent 3 days tracking the signal. His ship, the Wanderer's Hope, was small and fast. It had gotten him out of more than one bad situation. The ship's computer finally pinpointed the location, an asteroid base in the Theta system. He studied the base's layout through long-range sensors. It was a fortress. Shield generators protected it from orbital bombardment. Automated turrets covered every approach. They had at least 200 warriors inside. Any normal assault would be suicide. Good thing wasn't planning a normal assault. He put on his old combat armor. It was and dented from years of fighting, but it still worked. The armor was designed by human engineers who understood that soldiers needed to survive, not look pretty. It could handle extreme temperatures, radiation, and direct weapons fire, at least for a while. Checked his weapons. A plasma rifle, 2 pistols, a combat knife, and a bag of homemade explosives. Not much against 200 enemies, but he had learned long ago that the right weapons in the right hands could change everything. The approach took 12 hours. Piloted his ship in silent mode, using the asteroid field for cover. The sensors were good, but they were designed to detect ships, not a single person in a spacesuit. He exited his ship 2 kilometers from the base. The vacuum of space pressed against his armor, but the suit kept him alive. Humans could survive in environments that would kill most other species. It was one of the reasons the galaxy both respected and feared them. Used small bursts from his suit's thrusters to navigate between asteroids. It took an hour to reach the base's outer hull. They had sensors, but they weren't watching for someone crazy enough to approach on foot through hard vacuum. He attached magnetic clamps to the hull and began moving along it like a spider. He found a maintenance airlock, a small entry point used for repairs. His combat knife had a plasma edge. It cut through the lock in seconds. The airlock cycled, stepped inside, and the door sealed behind him. Air flooded the chamber. When the inner door opened, he was inside the base. The corridor was empty. Red emergency lights cast everything in shadow. Moved silently, his rifle ready. He had memorized the base layout. The holding cells would be in the lower levels near the station's core. He encountered his first guard near a junction. The warrior was massive, his armor black and red. He held a weapon that could punch through most body armor, but armor had weak points at the joints. Fired once. The guard dropped without making a sound. Dragged the body into a maintenance closet. 1 down, 199 to go. He moved through the base like a ghost. They had built their station to be strong against external attacks, but they hadn't planned for someone already inside. Used maintenance shafts and paths too small or dangerous for most species. Humans were flexible and could fit through tight spaces. He planted explosives at key locations, power junctions, support columns, shield generators. Small charges that wouldn't destroy the base but would cause chaos when he needed it. By the second day, they were starting to notice something was wrong. Guards were disappearing. Security systems were failing. Fear began to spread through their ranks. Heard them talking as he hid in the ceiling above a barracks. They spoke in their harsh language, but his suit's translator converted it to something he could understand. "It's a ghost," one warrior said. "It kills without sound, without warning." "There's no such thing as ghosts," another replied, but his voice shook. "Then what is killing our people?" the first warrior demanded. Their commander entered the room. He was the one who had taken Princess. His armor was decorated with kill markers. "It's not a ghost, it's a human." The word human made several warriors step back, smiled grimly. Good, fear was a weapon too. "Humans die like anything else," the commander continued. "Find it, kill it. The one who brings me its head will receive double pay." But finding was easier said than done. He moved constantly, never staying in one place. When they tried to hunt him, he hunted them instead. He used their own station against them, sealing doors to trap them, venting atmosphere to freeze them, shorting power conduits to electrocute them. By the third day, he had eliminated 30 warriors and they were in full panic. Their fortress had become a death trap. The commander ordered all personnel to gather in the main hall for protection, but that left other areas unguarded, including the holding cells. Made his move. He descended to the lower levels where the cells were located. 2 guards stood watch outside the cell block. They were nervous, their weapons moving at every shadow. Didn't give them time to react. 2 shots, 2 bodies. He moved past them and into the cell block. The corridor was lined with cages. Prisoners looked up at him with fear and hope mixed together. Scanned the faces until he found her, Princess, sitting in a cell at the far end. She looked terrible. Her silver gown was torn and dirty. Her face was pale and thin, but her eyes were still bright, still defiant. When she saw him, she pressed against the bars. "Who are you?" she asked in perfect galactic common. Removed his helmet. His face was, his hair dark and tied back. He looked exactly like what he was, a warrior who had seen too much combat. "Names," he said. "I'm getting you out of here." "You're human," said wonder in her voice. "You came alone." Seemed like the best approach. He used his plasma knife to cut through the cell lock. The bars swung open. "Can you walk?" "Yes," said stepping out. Her legs were shaky, but she stayed upright. "The other prisoners." "I'll open their cells too," said. "But right now alarms are about to start. We need to move fast." He cut through the other cell locks as quickly as possible. Prisoners stumbled out, grateful and terrified. Pointed them toward an escape route he had prepared, a path through maintenance tunnels that led to the station's small craft hangar. "Follow that corridor," he told them. "Stay quiet, stay together, there's a shuttle waiting." Then he turned to, "You're with me, we're taking a different route." Alarms began to wail through the station. The had discovered the escape, triggered his planted explosives. The base shook as power systems exploded and shield generators failed. Emergency lights flickered. Smoke filled the corridors. "Run!" shouted he, and ran through the chaos. Behind them, warriors were mobilizing. Energy weapons fired, scorching the walls. Returned fire, his rifle dropping enemies with practiced precision. They reached a junction. A dozen blocked the path ahead, threw a grenade. The explosion cleared the way, but shrapnel tore through his armor. He felt ribs crack, felt blood start to flow. "You're hurt," cried. "Keep moving," pushed her forward. They fought their way through corridor after corridor, took hits that should have killed him. A plasma bolt burned through his shoulder. Another struck his leg, but he kept fighting, kept moving. Humans could endure punishment that would drop other species. Had never seen anything like it. This human warrior was bleeding, broken, but refused to stop. He protected her with his own body, taking shots meant for her. Finally, they reached the external airlock where had entered. His ship was waiting outside, controlled remotely. He sealed them both into the airlock and triggered the cycle. "Put this on," he said, handing her an emergency suit. "We're going outside." Outside, into space. Had never done an EVA before. "Trust me." The outer door opened. The vacuum pulled at them, but their suits held. Activated his thrusters and grabbed his hand. They flew across the gap between the base and his ship. Behind them, ships were launching. The commander wasn't going to let them escape without a fight. Energy beams cut through space around them. Pushed through his ship's airlock first. He followed and slammed the hatch shut. "Computer, full burn, get us out of here." The Wanderer's Hope's engines roared to life. The ship accelerated away from the base at speeds that made its vision blur. The ships pursued, but ship was faster. He jumped to hyperspace just as a missile would have hit them. Space twisted and folded, and suddenly they were away, safe, racing through the stars toward Prime. Collapsed in his pilot's chair. Blood covered his armor, his breathing was labored, but he smiled at. "Told you," he said. "I'm getting you home," stood in the Wanderer's Hope's small medical bay, staring at the supplies. She had no idea how to use most of them. Medicine was different from human medicine, but was bleeding and she had to do something. "The blue case," said from where he sat. He had removed his armor, revealing the full extent of his injuries. Burns covered his shoulder. A deep gash ran down his leg. His ribs were definitely broken. Medical gel inside, just spread it on the wounds. Opened the case with shaking hands. The gel was thick and cold. She approached carefully. "This will hurt." "I've had worse." He smiled, but she could see the pain in his eyes. She applied the gel to his shoulder first. The burned flesh was horrible to look at, but as she spread the gel, something amazing happened. The wound began to close. The gel was accelerating his natural healing. "Your people heal fast," said surprised. "One of the few advantages humans have," replied. "We're not the strongest species. But we're tough. We survive things that would kill others. Worked on his other injuries. She had never been this close to a human before. His skin was different from hers, rougher from old battles. His muscles were dense and powerful. Everything about him spoke of violence survived, of wars fought. "Why did you come for me?" she asked as she worked. "The reward isn't worth facing the alone." Was quiet for a moment. "I saw your face on the news. You looked like someone who believed the galaxy was good. I wanted to prove you right." "That's a strange reason to risk your life." "I used to be a soldier," he said. "Human colonial marines. We fought in the expansion wars. I saw a lot of bad things, did some bad things too. Then one day my commanding officer ordered me to abandon a civilian settlement. Said it wasn't strategically important. I refused. Saved 300 people. Got dishonorably discharged for it." Stopped working and looked at him. "You saved lives and they punished you." "Military doesn't like soldiers who disobey orders, even for good reasons." He shrugged, then winced as the movement pulled at his ribs. "After that, no one would hire me for legal work, so I became a mercenary, take whatever jobs I can find." "That's not fair," said. "Life isn't fair, Princess, but sometimes we get chances to make it a little better." He met her eyes. "Helping you felt like one of those chances." Finished treating his wounds. The medical gel was working fast. Already, the burns looked days old instead of hours. She helped him put on a clean shirt and made him lie down on the bunk. "Rest," she ordered. "I'll watch the ship." "You know how to pilot a starship?" asked. "No, but I know how to watch warning lights and wake you if something goes wrong." He laughed, then groaned as it hurt his ribs. "Fair enough." The journey to Prime would take 3 weeks. Spent the first few days just processing everything that had happened. She had been a prisoner, terrified and alone. Now she was on a ship with a human warrior who had fought his way through 200 enemies to save her. As healed, they talked, learned about human culture, their art, their music, their strange sense of humor. Humans found laughter in the darkest situations. They made jokes about death and danger. It was how they coped with a universe that was often cruel. Learned about told him about her people's long history, their devotion to peace and art. She spoke about her mother, Queen Myra, who had ruled for 3 centuries with wisdom and compassion. 300 years, said. "How old are you?" 87, replied. "I'm considered quite young for my people." Shook his head. "You look maybe 20 in human years. I'm 32. I'll be lucky if I make it to 100. "So short," said sadly. "How do humans accomplish anything in such brief lives?" "We work fast, live hard, make every moment count," smiled. "Maybe that's why we're so intense, we don't have time to waste." On the 8th day, the ship's alarms woke them both. Ships had somehow found their trail. 3 hunter vessels dropped out of hyperspace behind them. "How did they track us?" asked as rushed to the pilot's seat. "They must have tagged my ship during the escape." Hands flew over the controls. "Hold on." The Wanderer's hope twisted and dove, evading the first volley of weapons fire. But the ships were fast and heavily armed. This was going to be a fight. Pushed the ship through maneuvers that made stomach turn. They raced through an asteroid field, using the rocks for cover. The followed, their weapons carving chunks out of asteroids. "I need you to do something," said. "See that panel? Route all auxiliary power to the shields." Moved to the panel. Her hands shook as she worked the controls. She had studied engineering but had never done this under combat conditions. Power surged to the shields just as a plasma bolt struck the ship. The shields held, barely. The chase continued for hours. They jumped between 3 star systems, but they stayed on them. Piloting was incredible, but the ship was taking damage. They couldn't keep this up forever. "We need help," said. "There's a neutral station in the next system. If we can reach it, they might protect us." "Will they respond to you?" "I have diplomatic credentials. Let me try." gave her access to the communications system, sent out a broad-spectrum call, identifying herself as Princess of. She explained their situation and begged for sanctuary. For a long minute there was no response. Then the station answered. They would provide protection and had to reach the station's defense perimeter first. How far? Asked. 12 minutes at full speed, the station replied. We have incoming fire, shields at 20%, but we'll make it. It was the longest 12 minutes of life. The ships closed the distance, hammering the Wanderers' hope with everything they had. The shield failed. Hull breaches opened in 2 compartments, but kept flying, kept dodging, kept pushing the ship beyond its limits. They crossed into the station's defense perimeter with seconds to spare. The station's defense fleet intercepted the hunters. The enemy ships, and outnumbered, broke off and jumped to hyperspace. Let out a long breath. That was too close. Felt tears on her face. She hadn't realized she was crying. The fear, the stress, everything caught up to her at once. Stood and wrapped his arms around her. It's okay, he said quietly. We're safe now. They spent 2 days at the station while repaired the ship. Helped where she could, learning the basics of human engineering. It was crude compared to technology, but it was reliable. Human ships were built to take damage and keep flying. During those 2 days, something shifted between them. Realized she trusted more than anyone she had ever known outside her family. He had risked everything for her. He had taken wounds that should have killed him, and he had done it all for someone he had never met. Why do humans do this? She asked him one night as they sat in the ship's small common area. Why do you help people who aren't your own? Thought about it. Because it's right. Because someone needs to. Because if we only help our own people, then we're just tribes fighting tribes. But if we help everyone who needs it, then maybe we can build something better. Your government didn't see it that way. Governments are run by politicians. They think about power and resources and strategy. But soldiers, the good ones, they think about protecting people. That's what I was trained to do. That's what I still do, even if I don't wear the uniform anymore. When they finally left the station and resumed their journey, sat in the co-pilot's seat and watched the stars stream by, had given her more than rescue. He had shown her what true courage looked like. Not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. When we get to, said, my mother will want to reward you. She'll offer you money, land, whatever you want. I don't need rewards. What do you need? Was quiet for a long moment. A home, a purpose, a place where what I do matters. Smiled, I think I can help with that. Moment the Wanderer's hope entered space, 12 warships surrounded it. Their weapons were armed and locked on target. Had expected this, but it still made her nervous. Attention, unidentified vessel, came a stern voice over communications. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. This is Princess, she replied, her voice shaking slightly. I am aboard this ship. The pilot is my rescuer, not my captor. There was a long pause, then a different voice came through, warm and familiar. Is that really you? Commander felt tears spring to her eyes. Was her mother's chief military advisor. Yes, it's really me. Your Majesty will want to see you immediately. We're bringing you aboard the flagship. Looked at, are you sure about this? They might not react well to a human mercenary bringing their princess home. They will once I tell them what you did, said firmly. The flagship was massive, 10 times the size of small vessel. They docked in the main hangar bay, where a full honor guard waited. But noticed they all had weapons drawn. They weren't sure whether it was a hero or a threat. Commander was there too. He was tall and dignified, his uniform crisp and formal. He rushed forward as stepped off the ship. Princess, we thought we feared. His usual composure broke. Your mother has been desperate. I know, said, where is she? In the throne room. She wanted to be there when you arrived. Eyes shifted to who had emerged behind, and this is. This is, he rescued me from the base. alone, against 200 enemies. His voice was strong and clear. He is a hero and will be treated as such. The guards looked uncertain. Humans had a complicated reputation in the galaxy. They were known as fierce fighters, yes, but also as unpredictable and sometimes dangerous. The stories of the human expansion wars still circulated, tales of planets conquered, of human soldiers who simply refused to stop fighting even when outmatched. But's word carried weight, gave a sharp nod. "Lower your weapons, the princess has spoken." They walked through the ship's corridors toward the throne room. Crew members stopped and stared as passed. Word was spreading fast. The princess had returned, alive. The throne room doors opened. It was a vast chamber with high ceilings and walls made of crystal that caught and reflected light in beautiful patterns. At the far end, on a throne that seemed carved from a single massive diamond, sat Queen Myra. The queen looked older than remembered. The stress of the past weeks had left marks even on her ageless face. She was surrounded by advisors and officials, all discussing rescue plans and ransom negotiations. Then she saw. Queen Myra stood slowly, as if afraid she was seeing a dream that might vanish. "Mother's voice broke. She started walking, then running across the throne room. They met in the middle. Queen Myra, who had maintained perfect composure through weeks of crisis, who had never shown weakness in front of her people, finally broke down. She pulled her daughter into her arms and wept. "I thought I had lost you," the queen sobbed. "I thought I would never see you again." "I'm here, mother, I'm safe," held her mother tight. "I'm home." The entire court stood in respectful silence. Many had tears in their own eyes. Princess was loved by her people, and her return was a miracle. Finally, Queen Myra pulled back, holding at arm's length to look at her. "How? The base was impenetrable. We tried to plan a rescue, but every scenario ended in failure. How did you escape?" Turned and gestured to, who stood awkwardly near the entrance. He looked completely out of place in the elegant throne room, his face and worn clothing a stark contrast to the refined court. "Mother, he rescued me, a human warrior. He infiltrated the base alone. He fought 200 enemies. He freed me when no one else could." Every eye in the throne room turned too. He stood under their gaze but said nothing. He had learned long ago that sometimes it was better to stay quiet and let actions speak. Queen Myra approached him slowly. She was shorter than but carried an authority that made up for the height difference. Her eyes, ancient and wise, studied him carefully. "You did this?" she asked. "You saved my daughter." "Yes, your majesty," replied simply. "Why? The reward we offered was substantial but not worth facing the alone. What motivated you to attempt something so dangerous?" Met her gaze without flinching. "Because it was the right thing to do, your majesty. Because your daughter needed help and I was able to provide it. That's all the reason I needed." Queen Myra continued to study him. She had ruled for 300 years and had learned to read people well. What she saw in was not greed or ambition. She saw a warrior without a home, yes, but also someone with a strong moral core. Someone who had been punished for doing what was right and continued to do right anyway. "You are human," she said. "It was not a question." "Yes. I know little of your people, only what I have read in reports, that humans are fierce warriors, that they do not give up easily, that they protect their own with frightening devotion." "All true," said, "but your daughter isn't one of my own. I helped her because she needed help. That's how humans are supposed to be, at least." "Supposed to be." "Not all of us live up to the ideal, but we try." Queen Myra smiled for the first time since return. "You have returned to me the most precious thing in all the worlds. How does one repay such a debt?" "There's no debt, your majesty. I was just doing what was right." The simplicity of his answer seemed to move the queen more than any flowery speech could have. She turned to her advisors. "Clear the room. I wish to speak with this human privately." The court filed out, though many looked reluctant to leave. Commander hesitated at the door. "Your Majesty is that wise. We know nothing of him." "He saved my daughter when all of you could not," Queen Myra said gently but firmly. "I think I can trust him for a private conversation. Now go." When they were alone, just the Queen, and Queen Myra sat on her throne again and gestured for them to sit as well, and took seats nearby. "Tell me everything," the Queen said, "from the beginning." They did, described her capture, the horrible days in the cell, the fear that she would never see home again. Described his infiltration, the combat through the station, the desperate escape. The Queen listened without interrupting, her face growing more amazed with each detail. "You did this alone," she said when they finished. "Without backup, without support, just one person against a fortress." "Humans are stubborn," said with a slight smile. "We don't always know when to quit. That saved my daughter's life. Your stubbornness, your courage, your refusal to accept that some things are impossible." Queen Myra leaned forward. "I want to offer you something. Not payment, though you will receive the reward we promised. I want to offer you a place here, a purpose." "Look surprised, Your Majesty." "The attack exposed weaknesses in our society. We have been peaceful for so long that we have forgotten how to defend ourselves. We need someone who understands the darker parts of the galaxy, someone who can train our forces to respond to threats." She paused. "More importantly, my daughter will continue her diplomatic work. She will travel to dangerous places, meet with uncertain allies. I need someone to protect her, someone I can trust absolutely." Mother started. "Do you object?" Queen Myra asked her daughter. Looked at, who was watching her with an unreadable expression. "No," she said softly. "I don't object. I trust him with my life. I already have." Queen Myra turned back to, "What do you say? Will you accept a place in my service? Will you help us become strong enough to protect ourselves and protect my daughter in the process?" Was quiet for a long moment. He had drifted for so long, taking any job that came along, never quite belonging anywhere. Now he was being offered a home, a real purpose, a chance to use his skills to protect people who needed it. "I accept," he said finally. "I'll serve you and your daughter to the best of my ability." Queen Myra smiled, and this time it was a true smile, warm and genuine. "Then welcome home." The ceremony took place 3 weeks after his return. The great plaza where she had been captured was now filled with people celebrating. Banners hung from every building, music played, children danced in the streets. Stood on the palace balcony, wearing formal clothing that felt strange after years in combat armor. The had insisted he needed proper attire for his induction into the royal guard. The clothing was comfortable but fancy, not something he was used to. "You look nervous," said, appearing beside him. "I don't like crowds," admitted. "Too many variables, too hard to secure." "You're thinking like a soldier even now." "Can't help it, it's what I am." Smiled. "It's what makes you valuable. My people have forgotten how to think this way. You're going to teach them." Over the past 3 weeks had been busy. Queen Myra had assigned him a team of soldiers to train. At first, they had been skeptical. What could this human teach them? Their technology was more advanced. Their civilization was older. But didn't teach them about technology. He taught them about survival, about tactics, about the mindset needed to face enemies who wanted to kill you. They learned fast. They were intelligent and dedicated. They just needed someone to show them how to apply their abilities in combat situations. Ran them through drills that left them exhausted. He taught them to think like predators, not prey. Commander had been impressed. "You've done more in 3 weeks than we accomplished in 3 years, he had told. "These soldiers actually look like warriors now." The training would continue, but today was about ceremony, about making his position official. "It's time," said, touching his arm gently. They walked together to the throne room. It was packed with people, Nobles, officials, diplomats from other worlds who had come to see the human who had accomplished the impossible, felt their eyes on him as he walked down the center aisle. Queen Myra sat on her throne, wearing her full royal regalia. She looked every bit the powerful monarch she was. When and reached the throne, they both bowed. "Of Earth," Queen Myra's voice rang through the hall, "you have performed a service to that can never truly be repaid. You saved my daughter. You showed us the value of courage and determination. Today, we honor you." Commander approached, carrying a sword on a velvet cushion. It was beautiful, the blade made of some crystal-like material that caught the light, the handle wrapped in silver wire. This blade was carried by the founder of, Queen Myra explained. For 3,000 years, it has been a symbol of protection and duty. I now entrust it to you. Took the sword carefully. It was lighter than it looked, perfectly balanced. "Your Majesty, I don't know what to say. Say you will use it to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Say you will stand between the innocent and those who would harm them. Say you will be our shield." "I will," said firmly. "On my honor as a warrior, I will." "Then I name you defender of, guardian to princess, first human to serve in the royal guard." Queen Myra stood and stepped down from her throne. She placed her hands on shoulders. "Welcome to our family. You are one of us now." The crowd erupted in applause, felt overwhelmed. He had been cast out by his own people for doing what was right. Now he was being embraced by another species, given honor and purpose. Was crying again, but this time they were tears of joy. She had gotten her friend back, and now he would stay. He would be there to guard her, to guide her, to remind her that the galaxy could still produce good people. The celebration lasted long into the night. Was introduced to dozens of important people whose names he immediately forgot. Everyone wanted to shake his hand, to thank him, to hear the story of the rescue firsthand. Finally, he managed to slip away to the palace gardens. He needed air, needed quiet, needed a moment to process everything that had happened. He found a bench near a fountain and sat down. The twin moons were rising, painting the sky in silver. He could hear the celebration continuing in the distance, but here it was peaceful. "Running away from your own party," his voice came from behind him. "Just needed a break," said. "How did you find me?" "I know you. You don't like being the center of attention." She sat beside him. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, just thinking. A month ago I was drifting, no real purpose, taking whatever jobs came along. Now I have a home, people who trust me, a reason to get up in the morning." "You earned it." "Maybe, or maybe I just got lucky." Laughed. "Fighting through 200 warriors is not luck. That's skill and courage and stubbornness." "That last one is definitely true," smiled. "Your mother asked me today about human culture, what we value, what we believe in." "What did you tell her?" "I told her humans believe that everyone deserves a chance, that where you start doesn't matter as much as where you end up, that we judge people by their actions, not their species or status." He looked at. "I think that's why I fit in here, the believe similar things." "We do," agreed. "Though we had forgotten how to defend those beliefs, you're helping us remember." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the fountain and the distant music. Thought about how strange life was. A few weeks ago, he would never have imagined being here, on an alien world, accepted as part of their society. "I have my first diplomatic mission next month," said eventually. "To the frontier worlds, it could be dangerous. Pirates, raiders, unstable governments." "I'll be with you," said immediately. "I know, that's why I'm not worried." She looked at him seriously. "You've changed things, not just for me, but for all of us. You showed my people that we can't just hope for peace. Sometimes we have to be willing to fight for it. Your mother is wise, she understands that." "She does. That's why she's already planning to establish a new branch of our military. Combat specialists. People trained the way you're training your squad. She wants to be ready if the or anyone else tries this again." Good said, hope for peace but prepare for war. It's the only way to survive in this galaxy. Over the next few months, settled into his new life. His training program expanded. More soldiers volunteered to learn human combat techniques. They called themselves the Guardians, and they wore armor that combined technology with human practical design. Ship, the Wanderer's Hope, was upgraded with systems. It became faster, stronger, more capable, but it kept its human heart, the reliability and toughness that had gotten them out of so many dangerous situations. When its diplomatic mission finally came, they departed together. The frontier worlds were indeed dangerous. They encountered pirates who thought a princess would be easy prey. They learned otherwise when and his guardian squad demonstrated what happened to people who threatened their charge. Word spread quickly through the frontier. Princess of traveled with a human warrior and a squad of soldiers trained in human combat techniques. She was not to be trifled with. The mission was a success. Trade agreements were signed, alliances were formed, and through it all stood at side a silent guardian who proved that protection and diplomacy could coexist. Years passed, became a legend in the human who had saved their princess, the warrior who had shown them how to be strong while remaining good. His guardians became the most elite fighting force in the sector, respected and sometimes feared by those who threatened peace. But never forgot why he did it, not for glory or power or wealth. He did it because people needed protection and he was able to provide it. That was enough. That had always been enough. One evening, 10 years after his arrival, stood again in the palace gardens. He was older now, his face bearing new scars from new battles, but he was content in a way he had never been before. Joined him as she often did. She looked older too, though barely, aged so slowly. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked, "staying here instead of going back to your own people?" Thought about it. He had received offers over the years, pardons from the human government, job opportunities, chances to return home. "No," he said finally, "this is home now. These are my people. You are my people." "Good," said, smiling, "because we're not letting you go. Mother says you're stuck with us forever." Forever is a long time. Not long enough. They stood together, watching the twin moons rise over. In the distance, Guardian trainees were running exercises, their shouts carrying on the wind. The galaxy was still dangerous. The still existed, threats still emerged. But was ready now. Thanks to one human warrior who refused to believe that some things were impossible, who proved that courage and compassion were not weaknesses but the greatest strengths of all. And in the throne room, Queen Myra sat with her advisors, discussing matters of state. But she took a moment to look out the window toward the gardens, where her daughter and her daughter's guardian stood together. She smiled. The human had given her back her daughter, but more than that, he had given her people a gift they didn't know they needed, the knowledge that peace must be protected by those willing to fight for it. "Mother, he rescued me," had cried that first day. But in truth, had rescued all of them.